Gil Martin from Locked On Islanders joins the show to discuss a potential trade for Jason Robertson. What does that package look like, and what other teams may be a potential suitor?
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. And today we have a special guest from Locked On Islanders. It is Gil Martin. I've talked with Gil a few times on the Locked On NHL show podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Go check out that as well. But now Gil's kind of hopping on here of Locked On Stars, doing a little crossover edition. First off, Gil, how are you today, good sir?
I am good. It is good to talk to you. And, I did an episode on a possible Robertson trade. I definitely wanted to get your input and, what you think the Stars would be looking for, maybe get a little more background information about him. And, great to do this.
Yeah, I'm very, very interested just because I am of the belief that the Stars should not get rid of Jason Robertson. But every single day now, it feels like we keep hearing more and more reports that he's being shopped. The Stars are trying to look at some cap space and to maybe re-sign Kyle Granlund, maybe to just re-sign any of these other unrestricted free agents they have. So I'm curious, just from a New York Islanders perspective, what makes Jason Robertson, I guess, a hot commodity, and what do you think that looks like for New York? Maybe the package, or what players are you willing maybe to give up to add a player like Jason Robertson?
Well, first, the Islanders need to get younger, faster, and more skilled. And I think he would check almost all of those boxes, if not all of them. They need goal scoring. They were 27th in the league or something like that in goals scored last year. So obviously you want to increase the offensive production, and he can certainly do that. The Islanders also need a change in culture a little bit. They've been sort of stuck in the muddy middle for far too long. And I think a player like Robertson, he wouldn't just impact you in the short run, but he's 25. So, he's just in his prime now. He has 1 year left on this contract. You sign him to an extension. You've got him, through his mid-30s, and that's probably what you would want to do.
Yeah, and I think he would basically hit the nail on the head for a lot of those boxes that you mentioned. Maybe he can check, and he's young too. And I think he's a really underrated defensive forward too. I think he's grown a lot in that aspect as well. We know he can score. He's 30 plus goals the last 3 seasons, but he has an underrated defensive aspect of his game. He's willing to defend, and sometimes that's all you really need out of like really elite goal scorers and players with that talent. As long as they're willing to defend and give an effort on the defensive side of the puck, that will certainly help. Now, from a Stars perspective, just looking at the Islanders roster, if Dallas is to consider this, like I'm looking at a player, and I know this is a steep price, but I'm looking at somebody like Noah Dobson, who is a right shot defenseman that could pair alongside Miro Heiskanen. And I know he's a number 1 guy, but if I'm Dallas, if I'm going to give up Jason Robertson, I need a really, really solid player in return. I think he would fit in Dallas really nice. Of course, you're going to have to sign him, so you may have to add like a Matt Dumba to this trade to gather some cap space if you're going to sign somebody like Dobson, because he's going to warrant quite a bit of money, and you're already paying Miro Heiskanen 8.45 for the next $7 million or the next 7 years. So Dobson's going to want somewhere, I would think, in that range. So is Dobson somebody that's a no-go for you if you're an Islanders fan? Or what players are you willing to give up in order to get Robo?
It's interesting because if you ask 10 Islander fans, you'll probably get a fairly evenly divided group of people. I have concerns about Dobson. Offensively, even though he had a little bit of an off year this past season, and it wasn't all his fault because so many injuries hit the Islanders and they aren't a great offensive team to begin with. but defensively, he's a liability. Like I could see Noah Dobson going to Dallas and, getting 60 assists in his sleep with the talent that Dallas has up front. So I think he could be a really good addition. But the thing is, as you alluded to, he's going to ask for $9.5 million a year. If you do the trade, you could even do an 8-year deal with him rather than a 7. And I'm sure things could be arranged where, you allow the negotiations to take place before you finalize the deal. So, you don't sign the deal right away, but it's in place. And then shortly after the trade is made, the deal gets announced as far as a new contract, because he is an RFA with arbitration rights right now. So half the fans are like, you don't trade away a 70-point right shot defenseman under any circumstances. And half the fans are like, boy, he is really inconsistent in his own zone. If we can get a great player like Robertson for him, let's do it. So it's sort of that kind of division. I am leaning more toward the idea that for the right price, I would be willing. And I think Robertson for Dobson may be a win-win for both teams. But whether or not new GM Matthew Darsh is going to go along with that remains to be seen. I needed to ask you this. Does the coaching change in Dallas make it more likely that Robertson would stay because maybe there was some tension with Peter DeBoer?
Yeah, I would think it would, just because it feels like directions are probably leading to the Stars making an internal hire. And I could be completely wrong on that. They may go out and find somebody from the outside, but Jim Nill wants to keep a lot of the assistant coaches on board, and that could be a potential candidate. Or if Neil Graham gets promoted from the AHL, then it would be nice for him to have a guy like Robertson that's a proven goal scorer as a first year head coach. So I think that the coaching change probably does lend to Dallas wanting to keep Robo. And I still find it a bit baffling that he's maybe being shopped, and maybe this is just reports and it's just smoke, but sometimes smoke leads you to fire. So it's rather curious to hear what teams may be interested and what the package is. And it's really interesting the notes you have on Dobson in a lot of ways. But if he is a defensive liability, I think I would take my crack at it. If you're Dallas, if you really feel the need to get rid of Robo, wouldn't you take a crack at it? I'd rather take a crack at a 25-year-old Dobson than signing Labushkin and Dumba for a combined $7 million like you did a year ago. Maybe you get him around a better situation environment. Maybe it'll work out. I guess if I may ask about Callum Ritchie a bit, maybe just a young forward that could potentially, maybe he's thrown into the deal. Is there maybe a young forward on New York that's a bit cheaper that Dallas would like to maybe have thrown into a package that includes Robo, just because Dallas is going to need some cheaper talent maybe on their depth?
Yeah, I tend to doubt the Islanders would want to part with Ritchie. The problem the Islanders have had, Lou Lamoriello traded away 4 consecutive first-round draft picks. So the cupboard is fairly bare, and they just acquired Ritchie in the Brock Nelson deal at the trade deadline. He's going to be either their number 2 or number 3 center this year. That's depending on how well he does in training camp. I don't think the Islanders are going to be all that eager to part with him. Young forwards is a problem with the Islanders.
And that's what they're trying to address by getting Robo.
Exactly. So I wanted to ask you a little bit. I looked at the numbers, and the numbers on the power play for Robertson look really good. Tell me what he adds to a power play, because the Islanders power play 31st in the league this past year.
Well, he has a shoot first mentality, and I think that has really suited him in Dallas in a lot of ways, since Miro Heiskanen is really not that if he's quarterbacking the number 1 power play unit. But we did see when Harley took over during Miro's absence with an injury, Harley has a bit more aggressive of a style in terms of how he quarterbacks the power play, which actually lends to, I think, better better looks for Jason Robertson. He loves to hang out around that right circle. That's sort of his office, so to speak. And he just likes to fire pucks on net. He's very liberal with his shooting, which I think lends to him picking up production, picking up points, just because he's not afraid to shoot it. He can shoot from weird angles. You hear all the time, like the reports about, like, he practices scoring goals from all different kinds of weird angles, like behind the net. Like, he practices those sort of things. And then you see that pop up. And I think he's had a few kind of curious goals against the Islanders in his career as well, because he practices those things from behind the net, behind the goal line, just like working on those type of things. And I think that suits him on the power play. But he gives you a go-to option. Like, the power play for Dallas has run through Robo since he's been called up. It changed when Mikko Rantanen came to town a bit, and Mikko kind of took over that part. And I think that's another factor, another part of the conversation is with Mikko Rantanen. Well, you're paying him $12 billion. It's going to be hard to keep Robo. I think you can if you're able to trade off some players like Lyubushkin and Dumba, but that's going to be hard to do. And I think that's another factor that plays into Dallas maybe shopping Robo, because, well, you're already paying an elite goal scorer, just elite player in the NHL, and Rantanen $12 million. Can you afford Robo at 10, half, 11, whatever he wants? I think that's a difficult conversation or a difficult task that Jim Nill has.
Yeah, no doubt. I think the cap is going to affect both teams as far as trying to make this deal. But when you're talking about, a right shot defenseman that can put up 70 points and a guy who has scored over 100 points in a season and had 140 goal season, you figure those things out.
Yes, no, exactly. You figure it out, and I think that's what all teams do at this era, right? With the salary cap, you just have to figure it out, and good teams do as well. They can bend the rules, it feels like, to their favor. But rather intriguing stuff, Gil. I appreciate you hopping on for a bit, just because it feels like Robertson is just picking up more and more steam as the days go on, and maybe it's a potential suitor down the line. And maybe some of the stuff we talked about ends up coming to light here, maybe in a few weeks or so.
We shall see. Going to be interesting.
Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein providing all 9 essential amino acids, and they are delicious. I picked up a bag the other day at the grocery store, and it's like snack meditation. It's that grab and go ease. That's the best part about Wonderful Pistachios. When you're up and running between meetings, maybe you're dropping off the kids, you just need a snack that's nutritious to hold you over until dinner. That's where Wonderful Pistachios comes in. It's a snack that works as hard as you do. So go pick up a bag at your local grocery store, get snackin', get crackin' with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. I hope everybody enjoyed Gil from Locked On Islanders. As I mentioned before, he co-hosts Locked On NHL on the Locked On Podcast Network, and I've hopped on there every once in a while and chat with him about Stars hockey. It was nice to get a different perspective on the Jason Robertson trade potential saga, and we don't always get to cross over with our friends from the Eastern Conference, and since this Robo trade deal just continues to pick up steam, it felt like a perfect time to bring him in and just maybe see what type of packages the Stars could get in return for Jason Robertson. And I stated it, I'm not for trading Jason Robertson by any means, but I think everybody has a price. And if the Stars feel they have to get rid of Jason Robertson, then you need to keep your options open and you need to find a good package in return if the Stars want to stay in this window of winning now. And this came from Elliot Freeman the other day. Jason Robertson's name is out there, could be moved to make room for a Granlund extension if Dumba or Lyubushkin can't be shipped out. And that's rather curious why the Stars would chip out Robertson to re-sign a guy that's 10 years older, but obviously, Jim Nill has a plan. Not saying this is coming from Jim Nill by any means, but Friedman, I think, has his toes in the water and would not just say willy-nilly things in order to get clicks is sort of where I'm going with that. I think you have to take the report seriously to some degree. And so I want to talk about some other potential suitors, and I want to go just across the pond, I guess, or across the Hudson. Maybe I could be completely wrong on that, but the Rangers, that's another team that I think could be sniffing around a Jason Robertson just to maybe get a bit younger up front and add some skill. And when you look at the Rangers roster, I think there's a lot of intriguing players the Stars could get in return. I'll start with Will Culley. He's a young left winger, just 23 years of age. He's got some size too, 6'3", 212 pounds, and had a really strong season this past year, 45 points in 82 games. He would be a replacement for Jason Robertson if he was dealt to New York. And I've seen some Ranger fans on Twitter and X just scrolling through. A lot of Ranger fans are not willing to give him up. He would be considered untouchable to a lot of Rangers fans. But if you're the Stars, if you're going to give up a guy like Robertson, you need to get something good in return. And I think Culley would suffice in a lot of ways. And maybe you throw in a Keandre Miller. He's a left shot defenseman. He is big, 6'5", 209 pounds. It's been a bit up and down with him in New York, but he has some offensive flashes, 27 points in 74 games this past year, but he did have 43 points in 22-23 in 79 games. So he's been durable. He's huge. And he does have some mobility there as well. And we've talked about Dallas trying to retool the back end with some defensemen that have some offensive skill sets and can work the puck up the ice, whether that's via their skates or with passing. Another defenseman I would throw out there, and maybe this would be more intriguing to many other Stars fans, is Braden Schneider. He's a guy that I feel like I'm always impressed with when the Stars play the Rangers. And I get it, they don't play New York a ton throughout the season, but he's 23 years of age. He's a right shot defenseman, 6'4", 214 pounds. So that's another big guy on the back end you could bring in. And he's on a year two of a 2-year deal upcoming at $2.2 million. So you would have him for next season with the chance to sign him again. I think he is a really, really interesting piece the Stars could try to get in a package for Jason Robertson. And it felt like that would maybe have to be included for Ranger fans, maybe Schneider, Culley. Really curious. I don't know if this would be an option, but Alexis Lafreniere, a former first-round pick, had a bit of a down year, but really everybody did in New York. 45 points in 82 games. As I mentioned, a former first overall pick. I don't know if New York is willing to part ways with him. You would have him under control, however, for the next 4 years at $7.45 million. He's a bit cheaper than Jason Robertson is currently. So that would be rather fascinating. And as I've said a few times, it'll make sense to trade Jason Robertson if the Stars do not believe they're going to be able to re-sign him at $10.5, $11 million. If you don't believe you're going to be able to retain him, then you might as well shop him and see what kind of packages you can get in return. Unfortunately, the Stars are a bit handcuffed because of what they did with Lyubushkin and Dumba, and that's sort of where Friedman was reporting from. Maybe you can find a team like Chicago for Dumba or Lyubushkin. Maybe you can get a second-round pick back next season. Stars don't have their second-round pick, I believe. Lyubushkin, maybe you could find a spot for him just to get a pick back in return, because it will be really, really tough to re-sign Robertson if the Stars aren't able to ship out the contract of Lyubushkin or Dumba. Dumba will come off the books next season. Lyubushkin's sort of the tough task at 3.25 for the next 2 years. So that will go against your cap when you're trying to re-sign Jason Robertson. And now this also sort of brings in the factor, maybe you can package Robo and Marchment for a return, and then you can really go out and maybe spend some more money on your back end. And that's where maybe you're looking at like an Aaron Ekblad, who will be an unrestricted free agent after this season. Maybe a Noah Dobson, right? I think that's another candidate, as we discussed with Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders. So a lot of curious decisions that the Stars can make. I'm just really fascinated on what the package in return could be for Robo. Obviously, we know what type of player he is. He wasn't even fully healthy the entire season, still was almost a point per game player. It's really hard for my head to compute a lot of the numbers and salary cap situations. That's something that just does not really come very easy to me. I know what players I like or I'd like to get in return, but sometimes it's just too much of a chore for me to try to break down the money situation and cap space. It can be a lot sometimes. And yeah, as I've stated many times before, not a huge math guy by any means. Will Borgen is another defenseman I throw out there. He does have a no trade clause for this next season, but maybe he would be interested in coming to Dallas. He's 28 years of age. He just got his second contract not too long ago. He's year one now with the Rangers. He played in Buffalo and Seattle as part of the expansion team, and he's sort of proven himself and starting to be a decent little veteran player for whatever team he's a part of. So that's another name I would throw out there in terms of possibly getting back a return for Robo. What I'm not interested in is like a JT Miller, right? A guy that's like in his mid 30s. I mean, I'm not really interested in anybody above the age of 30. If you're going to cough up Robo, yeah, you need to get somebody that can help you win now, but I would like somebody that has a little runway. And that's where I'm looking for a top four defense, like a strong, proven top four defenseman. If I'm shipping off Robo, that's what I'm going for. If I'm Dallas, if you're going to make this deal, you're getting somebody you can pair with Miro, or you can pair with Harley and can play big minutes for you. That's what you're getting in return. I'm not interested in prospects, picks. I'm not interested in like a JT Miller or an Andres Lee, right? Who the Islanders have. Somebody that's, in their mid 30s, their best days are behind. And I'm not looking for a forward of that. If you're going to get a forward for the most part, I'm looking at a guy like Will Culley, who could be a potential replacement in years to come for Robertson. And he may not live up to what we've seen Robertson do at this level. That's also what you have to factor in. Like a lot of players would like to have seasons like Jason Robertson. Those are hard to come by. He's a top 10 winger in the NHL, at least a top 10 left winger. So you have to be rather careful about who you're trying to trade with. So really, really curious there. All right, let's step aside, and then we'll go to another team that has been floated around there a lot. And Brady Tkachuk, by the way, is a part of this team. So we'll do that in just a moment. So Brady Tkachuk, I feel like is a player that's almost lived in Stars lore recently, just because Ottawa's been a bit weird. They've been up and down. They of course made the playoffs this last season. They were not sellers at the deadline. They went and they did move some young pieces that they thought maybe at the time were going to be a part of their core, but they went out and got some players to bring in, and eventually made a decent Stanley Cup playoff run. And Tkachuk, of course, is their captain. And I know this has been floated around there by certain people. I don't, for me, it doesn't make sense, just because I don't see why Ottawa would part ways with Brady Tkachuk. That one doesn't compute. I could see maybe a few years ago when they were still down and maybe they felt like it wasn't moving in the right direction. And yeah, I would like Tkachuk. I don't think he's better than Robertson. I know there's some people out there that think that, and I don't understand that. And I know they're I know they're different types of players, but I'm going to take Jason Robertson over Kachuk, in my opinion. And I know Brady is that strong, physical, powered forward type of center / winger, like Jamie Benn, I guess, was, back in his prime. And I get that because you want to add some toughness to this roster, and Kachuk could do that. But I don't know if I would be willing to swap Robo for him. And he's had great years. I mean, he's had almost 4 straight 30-goal seasons Brady Kachuk had. He had 29 goals and 55 points in 71 games this year, dealt with an injury. But he's going to deal with injuries throughout his career because he's a tough player. And he's going to miss time just by nature of his game. If I'm the Stars, and maybe let's say you get Brady Kachuk for him, I think that's a pretty decent swap straight up. But Kachuk is 8.2 million. It's not like you're getting him for a discount, so you'd probably have to throw in like a Matt Dumba or Labushkin just to create some more cap space. I just don't know if doing a deal with Ottawa would alleviate a lot of the issues the Stars have with their cap situation, because that's really where this whole Robo trade potential is coming from. And I don't know if the Senators are maybe the right partner in order to get a deal done, because it's just, Kachuk, you would have him under control for 3 years, but he does have a no movement clause, by the way, too. So I don't see them wanting to part ways with him, but I know that's been a popular team teams have looked at. Another team I would throw out there, Utah and the Mammoth. They're going to want to try to bring in players to help them win. Like, they don't want to sit around and stink, right? And they made big strides this past season. They got off to a pretty decent start, and then they slowed down. And they actually have a lot of potential guys I would love to look at, just because they have a lot of that young talent that the Stars could go after. Number one, Michael Kesselring, 25-year-old right shot defenseman, will be under control for next season at $1.4 million, 6'4", 216. He is, I think, exactly what you're looking for of a big defenseman with an offensive skill set. 29 points in 82 games. He's not going to blow you out of the world, but strong there. That's a guy I will be looking at if you're Dallas and you're dealing with Utah. They also have a lot of young forwards up front. I mean, you could throw a lot of different guys out there that would be interesting. Barrett Hayton is a guy that would be cheap. Mateus Michelli, he's a left winger, right winger. He's a left shot, $3.45 million next season. Lawson Krause, he probably wouldn't be on the block if I'm mistaken. I think they would like to keep him, but Nick Schmaltz is a guy. He's a bit smaller, 6 foot, but we've seen him quite a bit. Sort of an Energizer Bunny type of player. I think Utah could probably put together a pretty interesting package if you're the Dallas Stars as well. Probably Kesselring, Schmaltz in there, I think would be good. Kesselring, you could Kesselring, Hayton, right, or Michelli probably, or two players I would look at on Utah if the Stars are looking for a package in return from Utah. And that's a team, like, they want to get some guys that are proven that they can bring in to try to get them over the hump in terms of trying to get into the postseason. They made some big strides recently, and they're in a much better situation, of course, after leaving Arizona. And I think they're a team to look out for. That's going to take some possible big swings here in the next few months or so. Still a long time before this starts. I mean, we probably got a couple. We really got like over a month before anything truly goes down. But again, I think it's really interesting, this this Robo trade, rumor, rumblings, potential. Again, I'm not trying to will the Stars to do this, but it keeps coming up, so it feels like we have to touch on it a bit and just maybe discuss what type of package the Stars could get in return. And I'm curious what type of players you would like back in return for Jason Robertson. Is there anybody out there on a certain team that if you're going to give up Robo, like, you want this guy? So let me know in the comments below. Would love to hear your feedback. That's going to do it for today's episode. Sorry if we're all over the place. I'm just throwing a lot of names out there. Again, this is just experimentation in a lot of ways, just looking at what teams have to offer, and maybe there's a package out there that would really intrigue you, and I would love to know. So please be sure to do that in the comments. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button as well. Be sure to hit the notification bell. Continue to join us all off season long. So much to break down here as the off season is just underway here in Dallas. That'll do it for today's episode of Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, Stars fans, and we'll see you tomorrow.